Okay, so here we are in a different stall, and we'll be here for a while because he's a pig. How to take a halter off without getting your arm yanked out of the socket, because your horse has already got 2 steps in his leaving pace. Meaning you've taken your horse out to turn out, and you go to take his halter off, and you get one ear off, and then they're yanking away and taking the other ear off and half running away before you even have the halter completely off. So dangerous. Not only dangerous because it's dangerous to you, but it's dangerous to your horse because your horse gets themselves kind of spun in a certain direction. It's dangerous to your horse because your horse could get so high energy that he could actually, like, stumble, trip on himself, clip himself with his own foot. If your horse wears shoes, that's the last thing you want. And then it's dangerous for other horses because the longer you make your horse mad while he waits to get his halter off, he's going to go take that out on another horse, and I'll tell you how that works in a herd. But teaching your horse how to take his halter off politely is not only safer for you, safer for your horse, but safer for the farm that handles your horse. A lot of people don't think about training their horse for the poor people that have to handle your horse, for bringing him in and out and whatever. And often, you'll find that your horse is like the least liked horse in the barn because he's really kind of difficult when it comes to, turnout or being brought in from turnout because of this and this reason. Maybe he doesn't walk nicely, maybe he prances back to the barn, maybe he just gets himself so upset, whatever. So let's think about training our horses for everybody that has to handle our horse. So that way, we don't have the horse that could potentially, with the person with a lower level of patience, could potentially be the horse that gets hit. Or yanked on, or used with a stud chain, or whatever people do to control horses they think are out of control. And are properly perceived as being out of control. So, now it's time to let your horse loose. First of all, I send my horses through a gate, ask them to come back to the gate and face me. Okay, I stand at the gate. I don't enter their paddock. I don't enter their stall. I ask them to turn back around, come back to me, face me, and wait for me to dismiss them. And I know it sounds all military-ish and whatever, but let me tell you something. Horses that have rules are happy horses. Horses that understand their rules are happy horses, and they're happy to comply, and they're happy, just happier emotionally and mentally. There's no mistake of who the leader is. Every time that you tell your horse this is how we're going to do it, your horse will learn that that's just, that's the way it is. And there's never abuse, there's never aggression. So your horse comes in the paddock through the gate, you stay standing at the gate, the horse comes back to you. Now, it's quite the opposite of putting your halter on, obviously, you're taking it off. But what you're going to do, and what I do, is I take the halter. I don't just unsnap my horse. Now, people who do that, that's also another thing where you get the snap half off and the horse is running off with you and you get your arm yanked out of the socket. That's always a good one too. But what I do is I unclip the cheek piece or the throat latch piece, whichever piece you want to call that. I put my hand on my horse's nose. Okay, I put it right across the nose piece of the halter on the horse's nose. Then this, therefore, is holding that nose piece in place. I remove one ear, I remove the opposite ear, and then I allow the head piece to slide down and rest on top of my forearm. I'm still holding the nose piece on the horse's nose. I then place my hand on the horse's cheek closest to me. And you know how big their cheekbone is, so I lay my hand. So I have my hand on their nose and I lay my hand on their cheekbone. When they blink softly and submit to me holding them there, I then just lower it off and leave them, and I step back. That lets them know that you've been unhaltered, and it has to be done passively, politely. It has to be done calmly. If my horse was to get anxious and start acting like that, I have a hold of him, right? I have a complete hold of him by his nose, and if I have to, which I think I would still have the lead rope in this hand, if I have to, I can still control him with the lead rope. Then, once you've lowered it, you've dismissed them. When you step back, you've dismissed them. And then they can leave. Generally speaking, gradually, your horse won't run off from you anymore because all that anxiety that they used to get themselves built into is gone. So they don't have this, I gotta go, kind of thing about them. They just, all right, cool, see you later, and they walk off. Or they want to hang out with you. Again, they want to be around the leader. Trust me, they want to be around the leader. They want to be the safest one in the herd. So that's how I do it at a field or a gate. Now, how I do it in the paddock or how I do it in the stall is exactly the same. Often, I have food in the stalls already before I bring the horses in. So, when they come in, that's what they're anxious for. And a lot of barns do that as well, where the stalls have been grained before they start bringing horses in. So now you've got a horse that knows that there's grain sitting there, and you've got a horse that's going to start trying to demand you take his halter off right now, and they're going to bop you in the head when they swing over to get to their grain when they take the halter off. Do yourself a favor, teach your horse how to politely take his halter off, and you won't have those issues anymore. Now, mind you, if your horse is kept at a boarding stable, there's chances are that people have been taught how to just kind of rake a halter off of a horse's face. Just grab that opposite ear or even grab the ear closest to them and just yank it off, and you watch. They have to blink because it's ripping across their eyes. There's definitely politer ways to remove your horse's halter. However, there's many people who've never even taken the consideration for that. So take consideration of your horse's eyes. Maybe watch how somebody else, like say your horse is being brought out to turn out and you just happen to show up at that time, and instead of taking your horse from the person, just walk with them and watch and just see how the horse is being unhaltered, and if there's a way to ask them to, be more aware of the horse's eyes, you may be bringing just something to their attention that they never thought of. But I do watch that a lot where people, when I've ever had anybody come in and maybe help me bring horses in or something, and they just kind of have like a general knowledge or an old school knowledge of how to, put a horse away and take their halter off and all that. I've watched, I'm going to say 9 out of 10 times, that the horse's eyes aren't even thought about, and the halters are just kind of ripped across their eyes. So be conscious of your horse's eyes. Make sure that other people are conscious, because those are the things that too can build the anxiety. Okay, so maybe your horse isn't having anxiety because he's anxious to go run off and be with his buddies. Maybe he's not having anxiety because he's just dying to get his head in his food bucket. Maybe he has anxiety because he knows you're going to hurt him before he's finally done. And the horse's eyes are very sensitive, that's soft tissue, so just be careful with your horse's eyes and be aware of what you're doing when you take a halter on and off. That you may actually be hurting your horse and causing him the grief that, you are otherwise perceiving as being about wanting to just go be with the herd or wanting to just get their head in their food bucket. They might actually be experiencing anxiety about how much it's about to hurt. So that's haltering and unhaltering. I'm going to go ahead and stop this video and maybe stop completely for a minute because I got to come up with another subject. Maybe I'll do a blanketing subject. That's always a good one. A lot of people misunderstand the reasons for blanketing. A lot of people put human emotions into blanketing, and maybe a little guideline would be good for some people about blanketing and when it's good and when it's not good. All right, maybe that's the next topic.